listening to Preacher in the Hat podcast. Lock us in and rip the knob off.
Welcome in for another installment of Preacher in the Hat. My name is Derek. I got two guys across from me, and my brother Eric and my father Steve. And as always, it's Big Easy behind the camera, Mr. Chris Sumter.
Yo. Big Easy.
I feel like we got to say it every time now until he finally does it. Is one of these days he will be on camera.
It is not this day.
The people want producer
If
cam.
you believe that Chris Sumter should start going on camera with us, please put a comment. Drop a comment, please.
Drop a comment wherever you are right now.
Wherever you are right now, drop a comment.
I'll tell you what.
Or just like this section
you know
right
what would
here.
be great? I'm like, guys, I finally did it. And you're like, I got another camera, but I bring in this like $20,000 like camera with like a $20,000 lens. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And it's like, well, what's up with that?
That's exactly what I envision happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will that be next week or the week after?
I got to save up my pennies.
There's a lot of pennies.
It's a lot of pennies.
Anyways, good to have y'all with us for another one. We talked last week about a worship, and we're going to continue that conversation today. I thought a nice little exercise for us here to begin this episode is I need to plan the worship set for this coming Sunday. If anyone would like any input.
Oh,
Chris,
All hymns
yeah.
from the Baptist hymnal.
I'm not
Next,
does it have to be the Baptist
suggestion?
hymn?
No, I mean, it can be, just a hymnal.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not opposed to a hymn.
no.
I don't mean
I'm not going to.
no. I'm not talking about
going to
some-
load the set because that'll be.
Yes, I see your hand.
I've got.
I see your hand, Big Easy. Go ahead.
Be a little off.
I don't mean one of these new confounded, we rewrote it and rearranged it to make it more palatable for I'm talking about the inspired hymn.
The
Inspired him.
You know what I'm
You're,
talking about, preacher.
You're taking a step on towards our last episode that we discussed, Chris.
Preference, eh?
You're getting pretty preferential here.
So is worship for you, Chris, or is worship for God? Which is it? So
This is getting off of the topic of me wanting y'all's help for.
But I do want to hear what his answer is.
Yeah, I would like to hear that answer anyhow. At some point. Doesn't have to be right now. So
Might as well. It's been asked. He threw some trail mix in, so that bought us some time. Yeah, your thoughts? I mean, anybody? I know many of our listeners probably not familiar with our or with some songs we regularly do, but I'm kind of opening it up to the floor here. I got a couple of worship team members in studio with me right now who have a chance to influence, and
It's an interesting question you have posed. I am a huge fan of a song by Hillsong Worship called "That's the Power." Mm-hmm. It's a song that we do that I would totally be in favor of. I think maybe we did it somewhat recently.
I believe I'm missing a very important guitarist for this week who is instrumental in that.
Good to know.
In that particular number, as they used to call it.
Yes.
If you're not familiar,
number,
listeners, "That's the Power" by Hillsong Worship. And if you are, I don't listen to Hillsong for this or that reason. Pretend it's not by Hillsong, and then go listen to "That's the Power."
Yeah.
It's an incredible song.
Well, anyways, I got some planning to do. Work has been mentally draining me throughout the week, and I used to be better about planning these sets on Mondays and Tuesdays. We have a pretty regular set in terms of who's on stage with us, so I can't really. I don't work weeks in advance just because no one would even practice weeks in advance because they still got to prepare for the next Sunday. So I think a lot of people in my position, when you have a huge team, they'll plan, a month or so in advance. Not really the case for us. So
there's a song that I really like. We sang it at our old church, and I want to say you sang it one time. I just know Cornerstone is in the song title. Do you know what
that's
Yeah,
I'm talking
that
about?
was
does
that
that?
was one in the that is also Hillsong Worship, I believe.
Cornerstone.
But
Weak Made Strong.
yeah.
Oh, that is
Now,
man.
Savior's love.
yeah, don't everybody start singing different parts of it. But that was
strong in the Savior's love. Is that it?
Yes.
Dude, that gets
the
me.
storm.
Oh, dude, that gets me every
Yeah.
time. So, dude, put that on there.
I got to draw that one out of the archives.
I don't know, but
we
that's
haven't
like
played
one
it
of my
in.
favorite.
That's an easy one. I mean, sorry, musically. I
Yeah.
think, from what I remember.
I don't have it in like in the bank right now though, so I'm gonna have to go pull that out.
That's a good one. I like that one. Too.
I don't know.
me
I don't
see.
know
yes,
the
we used to do that regularly.
Yes.
I'm gonna
a lot of
show archive songs here, and
See the last.
oh, there it
time we
is.
did-
Okay, so we did it in March. Oh wow, we did this. We did this song. The very last time we did this song was the Sunday before COVID hit.
Sunday before.
Yeah, March 8th.
Okay.
And then it hit that week, and I believe March 15th was
That's
our
correct.
very first one where we had about 50% attendance, and then it was all wonky there
that
for a
song.
while.
That song might get me saved all over again. I don't know what
It's not how it works. Please ignore Chris's.
No, I'm just serious. That song is so special when you hear it. I don't know what it is about it.
Well, it's a good song.
I'll tell you another great song, and I can't remember the name of it, but it goes a little something like this.
Yeah.
Boy.
What a friend we have in Jesus.
You can't remember the name of that song because you just sang it.
You started it too low for me. Yeah.
Yeah, he went way down. All right, Chris, I'm gonna lob you one here, man. I'll bring back Cornerstone for you. This
Look,
week.
I'm not going to say I'll raise my hands when you start singing it, but I might carry the TV.
Carry the TV.
He's talking about.
Oh, the
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and do this now so that I don't forget.
Steve, what do you got? What's on your plate? Like, what would just give you all kind of joy if you heard it? You like them all. I know you like them all.
I am. When somebody asks me what a favorite song is or what would I like to do, it's a very difficult process for me. I don't know why, but it is. It is a very difficult
Eric, are we
process.
digging up old songs? Is that what's happening this week?
No,
Okay.
but I can dig up that one. Why?
I'll just say I got some others we can dig up.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, there's just some. It's really hard to keep a massive library of ones that you're doing, and so some of them will just kind of fall off. In that case, I think that was one that we were probably doing a little bit less, anyways. And then COVID hit, and whatever we did for the next few months after that, we did a little bit less. So it probably never made the rotation there, and just kind of naturally fell out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean a song's not good anymore, It's just,
absolutely.
It's, seasons come and go, and band members, change, and
Tell a song, you have no place in Christianity anymore.
yeah, that's not what's happening here.
Go
not
sit on
at
the
all.
shelf.
right.
So yeah, well, if you're in town in Birmingham, no, this will have already
Yep.
aired. We'll have already done it.
sang it.
Sorry, never mind. Forget I said that.
Although you might be able to see us on a live stream. Oh no, that's right.
No, they
If it
won't.
was
They still won't
recorded,
hear about it
it'd be
until
recorded. So it's recorded. Yeah.
So when y'all hear one of those songs that mean a lot to you, is it because it was at a place in your life? I know secular songs is something like that, but what about like these kind of songs, like worship songs? Is it the way it's written? Some people they care about the accuracy of it, like theologically, or if there's like one little thing it says, they kind of lose interest. Or is it a mix of things, like how it's written or what it means to you? Or
Well, a while back we had some conversation about how there were songs in the past and sometimes hymns where you sang to each other.
really?
But a lot of the worship songs that we do today are not songs toward each other or challenging each other. Like, for example, Onward Christian Soldiers. marching as
Now,
to
how
war.
does that go?
Yeah, you know how that goes.
Onward, Christian
soldier. Yeah, that one's
I
actually
might be
one.
out. I might be done.
That's one, I'm not suggesting that for this Sunday. I'm just saying there are some songs like that are really challenging each other. You don't hear as many of the newer songs doing that kind of thing, and they're more of a focus upon God. And that is because worship is about God. It's not about us. However, they're in music. In music, there is a way, I think, in worship that the Scripture says we spur one another on to love and good works. Well, sometimes we can do that in music. What do you think, Mr. Worship Leader? Can you?
To answer your question, Chris, I think for me, a lot of times it does have to do with this, whatever my life is like at that moment and how it connects to it. I will also have songs that will come back to me in certain, like in moments, like down the road, like years down the road. But I have I like the worship songs that have like, I mean, I like all kinds, but if they really have some like punch to them musically, that might be because I'm a drummer, I don't know. But I like that. And then, like the song I was describing earlier, like lyrics that get like that really just kind of dig into stuff as opposed to just being like broad and generic.
Yeah.
But I try not to be cynical about about whatever worship song that I'm singing, because even if it is generic, that doesn't mean it can't be.
Now, what do you mean generic? Like it's not doesn't have enough spice or flavor, or what?
Right? Yeah, like people.
Like, give me an example. Don't hurt anybody's feelings.
I really can't. I was trying to as I made that statement, and I'm trying to think of one specific, and I can't really, because we generally, at least in my opinion, don't do a lot of songs at our church that would be like that. That I would describe that way as generic.
I think I do like songs myself that are songs of commitment. Like, for example, I'll say, "Yes, Lord, yes to your will and to your way." Another song I like to hear is a song like "Trust and Obey," for there's no other way. That's somebody, we're singing that to each other, to be happy in Jesus, but to trust and obey. So I do like those songs. I love the other worship songs that we do too. The Cornerstone, I love that one that you talked about earlier, Chris. And
well, okay, speaking of that, can we do that Sunday?
I got it, man. I got it on the list. I got you,
my brother.
I thought that was already settled, but that we would be. But anyhow, I do like those. And so some of those are memorable. You ask about if there's memorable times. I think some songs of commitment are memorable, come out of memory, come out of a certain time in my life when there was something going on, perhaps, that I felt a need to recommit or to re-up, you might say, and to some degree, not re-up with salvation, I don't mean that, but I mean just in terms of my commitment, in terms of
you weren't getting remarried, you were just getting reminded.
Reminded, I like that. That's good. I like that. That's very good.
That's a good word. That'll preach.
You are on a roll tonight. So you just like take over? Go ahead, rock and roll, man.
What a friend we have. That's a great song too.
Yeah.
I know you already said that.
I wonder what our listeners and
we're not
viewers. I wonder what.
I wish we were live. I wish we were live.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Asking this question, that would be
really
great.
cool. Yeah, it would be.
To know what songs or what kind of songs or whatever impact you the most.
You know, one of the things that I like to see, and I can talk about my dad since he's not in the room, but he grew up on the old hymns, right?
Right.
And it's interesting watching people sort of like go into a church scene where they're singing a certain kind of song and just wondering, like, are they gonna they going to dive in with the rest of us? You know what I'm saying? And so much of that is your how you were brought up and how you like were raised, I guess. You know what I mean? But I always find it really awesome when some older people that didn't grow up will like get into whatever you're doing and like, you know what I mean?
Well, and I think one of the reasons is, if you go to concerts, secular or non-secular Christian, one of the things you'll see is that people love to sing along with songs. They like songs they're familiar with. And so I think some of that is not so much that they don't like not necessarily they may not have the preference of that genre or whatever, but it's just like they don't know the song, and so it's hard for them to enter into it. I mean, like when we went to Creed concert, everybody was singing along with them. I had no idea what was going on. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't hear the words, myself or to understand the words, but they were just over there just singing and I think people like that kind of thing where they can participate at a time like that. And so if you grew up on hymns and then you're in a church where they don't do many hymns, that they do a lot of long songs, you find it difficult to really participate fully because it's all brand new to you.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you don't like it always or that you hate it. It's just you can't participate,
Yeah.
Like when you start singing What a Friend We Have in Jesus, there'll be some people at our church and other churches that wouldn't be able to follow along with you. When I sing some hymns sometimes at Grace and Truth, people just kind of like, what? Where'd that come from? Like at our Good Friday service, I did Kneel at the Cross.
There was one recently, maybe that was it.
Kneel at the
There
Cross?
was one recently that was a head scratcher for me.
Really? Which one was that?
Who's that one for me? I didn't feel like there was like a recognizable melody that.
Yeah, there wasn't.
Like as you got through to the next round of it.
You mean like Kneel at the Cross?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I still don't know how this goes. Like I still
right,
can't hear
right.
it.
Yeah.
And hymns are like that more than modern day songs.
Some of them are. Some
Some of them are.
Blessings, name them one by
No, that's a different
one.
one. That's got a little
Dude, I don't
rhythm
know what's
to it.
happening right now. Like, I really
Me
don't know
either. Maybe
what's
we
happening.
should cut it off.
Yeah.
Right, actually, and I just keep, there's another one right here, right
Chris,
now, ready to come out.
Sing more than 7 words of a hymn challenge.
No, I don't know.
You can't.
Sing more than 7 words.
Let's get into the topic. This is
What is the topic?
Well, we kind of jumped up. We kind of.
I was gonna say we were almost there.
We're getting right,
we were
in it.
right at the cusp.
Derek, I want to hear your take on what something that we touched on or danced around a little bit earlier, and that is the quote unquote, and so I'm air quoting if you're listening on Spotify or somewhere else. The validity of songs based on where they come from, or what era they come from, or what have you. Mm-hmm. So let's take example. I'm not going to get into a specific example just yet, but let's say there's a worship song that you are interested in bringing to the team or to our church, but you are not a fan of the church responsible for the song written.
Mm-hmm. You mean kind of like when King James commissioned the translation into the King James Version, and he was one of the most evil kings ever. Some people might say, well, I can't believe in that version because King James is the one who commissioned it.
Yeah, so
there's
well, I mean, I happen to know there's a lot of churches who do generally will have a rule that says you can't. They'll literally have a rule for their worship leader. You can't introduce songs from,
That's correct.
This church, and or this church.
It's usually a theological debate.
Theological, but yeah.
In other words,
it can also just be. It could be like the actions of someone in the church or something like that. So, not necessarily always strictly theological, but that can play a heavy role.
Yeah.
So
We don't sing songs from this particular group of people that are published by or written by this group of people. Is that what you're saying?
yes.
Okay.
So, for me, I mean, we talked about this last episode, or we mentioned it last episode, where I think it was the last one. Anyways, whatever. Where, you know, was the gospel preached? Like we had that verse in the Bible to point to, and I don't like that approach personally, because it's really hard if you're going to draw a line directly to a single church, and a lot of these, like, however many that produce, I think in the 2000, I saw a study and I can't remember, and so this is going to be kind of ballpark tier, but it was something like the top 25 songs from like a 2 or 3 year period, maybe, or something like that, or a 5-year period. Yeah, top 25 songs in a 5-year period. This was pretty recently. Came from like a group of 5 churches.
Okay.
All but one. And I can't even remember who the other one is. Does that association? So it's, number one, it's really hard to say. Do you only care if their group published it, but none of their writers were on there? You know, like, it can get kind of sticky. I was having this conversation with my neighbor, he's a worship leader at his church, and he's done, you know, far more musical stuff than I am. He could play me off stage on whatever instrument he decided to pick up. But I was having this conversation with him, and we were particularly talking about, Chris loves it when you bring up names, so I'll bring up the name of the church we were discussing.
All right, let me zoom in on
At that time was Bethel Church out in California, and they've, you know, there's been some things that people disagree with that they teach at their church and whatnot, and he told me, because I was like, you know, it can just be really dangerous to want to draw lines and say, I'm not going to do from this church, because then you got to say, well, what counts as that church? What counts as Bethel? Because if it's association with that church, that is a really, really broad net that you're casting. And he was saying, yeah, you know, one of his friends who he's toured with in the past was on an album from Bethel. And so you could say by association that he is like that my neighbor, well, can't sing anything of his because, you know, he like, so where do you draw that line is kind of what I'm trying to say is, it's really hard to do. Me personally, evaluate, we talked about, is the gospel preached? Is the gospel preached, or whatever? Is the song itself theologically sound? If there's something problematic in the song, it doesn't matter who wrote it. Like, if you feel like it's going to cause issues, don't sing it. There's a million songs out there. Don't sing it. But just evaluate it within the context.
Evaluate the song, not necessarily
evaluate the
source.
song, and just, like, if you have to, just cover up who, like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Now, like, I guess this gets into the whole, like, theology is, we can disagree on so much stuff, and there's some things that, like, we could disagree theologically, and it's not really, like, harmful. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, some of it is just like interpretation. Obviously, there is harmful interpretations. Yes. But I think because of that, you have to just look at each one, like, in and of
Well,
itself.
I think what are you saying? You're talking about defining a filter, maybe? What is your filter? I mean, what kind of filter does a song go through for you, Derek, as a worship leader? I mean, like, what filter does it go through?
I think you kind of answered that a little bit a minute ago.
Yeah.
In just looking at really how the theology of the actual song
Is, right?
Yeah. How
That's
that goes,
part of it.
How you feel like how I feel like people might respond to it.
Okay.
even things all the way down to like singability and all, like we talked about, some of those that can be harder to follow along with, and people just can't really participate.
So participatory.
There has to be a redeeming part of that participation too, because you can have a song like we introduced a song by Phil Wickham called "What an Awesome God," where I feel like the verses are maybe like a little bit less singable for the average person because they move kind of fast, but you have that old recognizable choruses of "Our God is an awesome God," right. And so people still, I think, feel engaged with that because you're more likely to just kind of like, if you're just vibing to the verses,
I really like that
and
song.
Everybody's just like gearing up.
Our God is an awesome.
I really like that song for the reasons you suggested. Is that it's different? You know what I'm saying? But it's familiar. It has some difference, but it's familiar. I like both of those.
With what you were saying, because with that particular song, it's like even if you don't know the verses, or you're not even, or maybe you don't even like the new verses. You still just kind of spend the verses gearing up for the chorus.
But the new verses are very good, and they're connected in a great way. I like that. Good, I love how connected they are.
He did a good job with that.
I think so too.
Super. I love that song.
We're talking about "What an Awesome God" by Phil Wickham. If we didn't say the exact title there.
Phil getting some more.
Let's raise it up for Phil Wicker.
Wicker.
No,
Phil Wickham gets a lot of love on this show, actually.
Yeah.
But I think you got to keep it to the individual song. And I'll say this: I would tell any worship leader who will listen, if you feel like, I just don't know about this song, it might cause some problems, then don't do it. Like, is it? There's so many songs. Like, it's not a problem if you don't sing that song. It's not a problem.
Yeah,
I think you made a great point too. We've obviously said a few times about focusing on the song, and if you don't do that, if you do focus on the writer, then at one point do you have to be like, well, let me introduce you to a man named David, who wrote a whole bunch of songs in the book of Psalms and had all kinds of issues himself. Now, you could certainly argue that David perhaps did not have, he was a lot, let's just say a lot of his theology was good, right? Like they included it in the Bibles.
Yeah.
So which came first on King David? Create in me a clean heart. Did he sing it first or did he write it first? Which one? If you think, because see, you read in the Psalms, it says the song of David, a song of this.
But even then, like the guy who, one of the main, I think it may be the main writer on a song called "Oh Praise the Name," which was a very popular song mid 2010s, and still we still sing it at church. He decided at one point that he had no reason to believe that there was a God anymore. But can we still sing the song? Can we still sing the words, "Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise his name forever." We can still sing those words. I mean, there were other writers on the song too, and whatnot, but we can still sing those words.
And after, all the things that David did, that were not what God wanted him to do, we can still say, "Create in me a clean heart."
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we can.
Well, and I think we can go back to the same verse we used our last episode, and that was, whether there's false motives or pure, I praise. Whether their motives are false or pure, I praise God that the gospel is being preached. And I think that can apply as part of our filter here in these songs. We can try to determine what the motives of the person that wrote it or what their lifestyle was. But the question is it gospel? Is it what God says? Is it consistent with Scripture? That's the important part.
And I think that goes beyond music, too.
Yeah, it does.
We don't have to necessarily dive into a whole bunch of specific things, but as you're sitting there listening to this conversation, I think there's probably other things in your life that sort of thought process can apply to.
And you would turn to your left right here to the library that's over here. There's books in there that have some bad theology in them, and I've read them. You know what I'm saying? Now,
Preacher, I got a lighter in my truck.
Can I quote from anybody? Can I quote from anybody in that library? Yeah, I can quote from almost everybody in there. even if I don't agree with everything about their theology. There's some things I do agree with. So I try to find that I do agree with as opposed to that I don't.
Are there any Dallas Willard books over there?
Oh, you know.
There's a few.
You know that.
And see, some people would say Dallas Willard is way off base, and so that I should never talk about Dallas. That's another
I
whole
hope they
subject.
got out of that room without getting slapped.
I don't. Yeah. I don't
Or
think
they
we
would say
better
things
ask
like-
him any questions about that.
They would say things like, "Oh, be careful," just like they tell a worship leader, "Be careful about singing that song." Sometimes they say, "Be careful about reading that guy. Be careful about listening to that preacher." So now you said it's not just in music, but it's also across the board.
Absolutely. Last question from me, Derek. People talk a lot about quote unquote inward focus during worship and whether or not that is a good or bad thing. What's your take? A lot of people will whittle it down even further to a worship song containing the word I, as in as in me, or something like that. I don't think we have to even bother going that deep into it, but it's a very real concern for one reason or another for a lot of people.
So what do you mean by inward focus?
Yeah, they lost me on that.
So I saw, again, I saw a real life example of this, a church where leadership required that none of the songs contain the word I.
Really?
Derek, we need some names.
I'm not giving names. Because it became about, they feel like that makes worship about me as opposed to, so inward focus, me, outward, upward focus.
Inward
God.
focus, me, my circumstances.
Yeah. And so now, are there examples of songs that are doing that? Yes. I think a lot of what people are talking about and things get twisted or combined almost, like molded together, is people start talking about what they hear on the radio as worship songs, which is not necessarily the case. I had a conversation with a pastor one time who said who conflated the two and said, what you hear on the radio, like it's all contemporary Christian music. And I'm like, no, because we're not singing any of those songs at church. But so I think we sometimes have some trouble separating that but even to that effect, when we write songs from our own perspective, how are we not going to at some point look at it from the lens of who he is to me or what he's done for me or that sort of thing? So we're supposed to always only ever sing about his qualities, which you can use the words I and still be talking about him. Like we sing a song called Yet Not I, But Through Christ in Me. Churches that church that in the example that I gave you would not allow you to sing that song. Yet, even though the entire song is talking about self-denial, like it's not me, it's him. But we just look at it so cut and dry to say, oh, well, that's talking a little bit too much about yourself. We can't do that. So yeah, it gets overblown, it gets overdone. I think a lot of times, and I'm trying not to make an accusation, and I'm not making an accusation here, but I think a lot of times it really more comes down to different eras of writing and preferences and what people like or are used to hearing. Because I've seen the argument as like, well, a lot of the hymns aren't written that way, which is also not true because so many of them look from the perspective of myself and what he's, done for me, or like, I mean, then sings my soul. Like, okay, are you like,
How
you
great
really
thou
gonna,
art. Yeah.
we're cutting that one out. Amazing, great. Like, I once was blind, but now I see. Like, we're cutting out Amazing Grace. Like, is that real?
So I wonder, when you're talking,
it's mind blowing.
it is mind blowing, and I think maybe it reflects the age-old battle between God's sovereignty and man's responsibility. There's some people say it's all about God's sovereignty, and there's other people say it's all about man's responsibility. But as I understand the Scripture, it's about both. So you can have both. You can have songs that focus.
You need both.
You absolutely do.
You need the song that is just,
Right.
about him, but you're gonna. I mean, okay.
Ken Sandy, well, you're talking here. Ken Sandy says something I really like, and he does it on his books, Relational Wisdom, and he says that we need 6 areas to be God aware and God engaged, self aware and self engaged, and other aware and other engaged. And when you think about it, why would we not have songs that would cover all 6 of those areas? God aware and God engaged, well, of course. But self-aware, just as I am without one plea, that's becoming self-aware that I'm a sinner, that kind of thing. And then God and self-engaged. I need to engage myself in songs of commitment and songs of that. Other aware and other engaged, I think about songs that have to do with how I reach out to other people. There's a old hymn called "Oh to Be Like Thee, Blessed Redeemer." Oh to be like Thee, it means I'm engaged with Him, but I'm also engaged with myself at the same time. So to act like you can't engage God, yourself, and others all at the same time is very, very stilted and not appropriate. God invites us to do that at all times throughout the Scripture.
Yeah,
That's a good word. That's a good word right there.
The songs we write, which go ahead and write one, even if you're not musical. Mm-hmm. The songs we write can be personal to the God who saved us.
That's right.
The songs that we write can be emotional and make us emotional about the song,
Absolutely.
about the God who saved us.
And they should engage our emotions.
They can be personal. They can be emotional. Mm-hmm. They can have really big builds that make you want to cry, Chris. They can have a drum. They can have those drums just driving all the way up to and make you want to lift your hands, and that's okay. I see so much of that talking about how we rely on the song for emotion.
And
if it's worship, it's not really where the emotion's coming from. The phrase that gets used is the song that plays on our emotions. If the song is worshipful in what it's saying, then it's not playing on any emotion.
Mm-mm. Might create emotion.
It might create an emotion. Mm-hmm. It might start an emotion. It might evoke an emotion. Mm-hmm. But there's absolutely everything right with being emotional about a God who walks with you through everyday life and sent his son to die for you. That is extremely emotional.
Bro,
correct.
Down. This guy, he's preaching. What is going on right now?
Well, a lot of times it's the left brain worship that people are talking about, where it's got to be over here in the rational side, and over here in the right brain is the emotional side. And songs have a beautiful way of engaging both of those. And I'm
not worried about, honestly, in the middle of that, I'm not worried about where that emotion is coming from. I'm not worried about what I think is kickstarting it. I am giving praise and honor to the one who's done everything that he has done for me. The reason that I'm sitting in the place that I am, have the family that I am, have the kids that I do. That is emotional for me, and you should let it be emotional for you too. My name's Derek. This was Eric and Steve. This is Preacher in the Hat. Chris behind the camera. Thank y'all again.